All right. Hello, everyone. We should be on live online, and there should also be the slides you guys should be seeing right now where it says how to heal your body and the planet. So welcome so much to the Chinese Reflexology Earth Day celebration. And I'm just going to put my video on right now. So let me just turn off the slides and then say hello to everyone. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Earth Day celebration. I'm wearing my Earth Day shirt. See if you guys can see it. It says, love the earth. It's kind of cut off there. Anyway, I'm so glad you guys can join me today. Today is Earth Day, so I wanted to do a very special presentation to celebrate Earth Day. And I'm going to be talking about how the planet, how nature helps us heal, and also how we can help heal the planet. So I'm going to bring up the slides right now because it makes the video a lot more efficient in terms of streaming. So let me just stop my video and bring up the slides. Here we go. So we're going to talk about how to heal your body and the planet with balance and harmony. So it's like the two things are connected, how our health is connected to the health of the planet and the planet's health is connected to our health too. And I'll talk more about that as we go along here. So connecting with nature is a very powerful way to achieve health and happiness. Now, I know a lot of you watching this right now, you're fans of Chinese reflexology and open to alternative healing, so you know how important this connection is, how nature affects our bodies. I mean, there's just things like the moon affecting the water, like the tides, and considering the body is made up of water, that obviously then when the moon goes through its cycles, it's going to affect us as well. And that's even shown, like they have statistics showing how there's different changes in behavior in society, like there's a more prevalence of certain behaviors when there's a full moon. But what I want to talk to you guys about today is I'm going to go over 5 natural elements from a Chinese medicine perspective that are key to experiencing balance and harmony in your organs, energy meridians, emotions, and even your diet. These 5 elements in Chinese medicine are so intrinsic to understanding how to be in balance and harmony. Then I'm going to talk about what is referred to as pernicious influences. So these influences are basically things going on with the weather, like how the climate actually affects your body. And again, this is something that because we live, in our nice little climate-controlled homes, we don't realize how much the weather and the seasons is affecting our bodies. And then if we paid attention to that, then we would realize that there are ways then to overcome these influences so that they're not pernicious influences that make you sick, but instead you're in harmony with what's going on with nature. And then your body then is stronger and more resilient. And then I'm also going to share with you how to harmonize with nature's tuning fork, to harmonize and, to harmonize and restore balance in your body, mind, heart, and spirit. And finally, I'll talk about ways to restore balance for our planet because it is Earth Day today. So it's so important, not just our connection with the planet, but how we can influence the planet through this connection. So I'm going to get started with, most of you know who I am, and I'll just quickly go through this. I'm the founder of ChineseFootReflexology.com. I'm also a full-time mom, and my blog, ChineseFootReflexology.com, gets hundreds of thousands of visitors each year from over 200 countries worldwide. And I'm also the author of Soul Guidance, Ancient Secrets of Chinese Reflexology to Heal the Body, Mind, Heart, and Spirit. Now, most of you know my story, but if you don't, for many years of my life, I actually was working in high tech, and by many years, like a decade, let's say. And because I was working in high tech, I was really disconnected from my body because I really hated my job, quite frankly. I hated my career path. I was continually stressed. We had really tight deadlines. I was unhappy, and I was miserable. And this disconnection led to me getting really sick, what I called my year of illness, where I just had one weird health issue after another, and it was almost like I couldn't get ahead of it, because it was like once I overcame one thing, something else would come and knock me down. And it seemed like my body had no resilience. And this went on for like a year. And it got so bad that I actually wondered at one point if I was dying, because I felt like I was fading in and out of life. So when you are not listening to your body, like there's that disconnect, and your body is always continually telling you what it needs. But I had that, just focus on work, be all stressed out, and I had that disconnect. And it took me getting to the point where I was like wondering if I was dying. And this thing that motivated me wasn't that I was wondering I was dying, it was that I didn't care that I was thinking I might be dying. That was the thing that scared me, because life had become so apathetic doing this job that I hated, that it seemed like there was no purpose. And so what happened was my boyfriend, who's now my husband, told me go see his Chinese reflexologist. And I was like, how's that going to help me? But I went to go see the doctor, the Chinese medicine doctor. I got Chinese reflexology treatments. And then eventually he said, hey, why don't you learn? And I learned how to practice on myself, and I recovered my health through Chinese reflexology. Because your feet, when you're disconnected with your body, your feet are a really powerful way to reconnect with the body, because they let you know exactly what's going on at the physical level and also at the energy level. You'd be amazed at how much can be revealed by the reflexology points on your feet. And within a year of learning how to practice Chinese reflexology, I had I was practicing on myself regularly. I had completely restored my health, and I was training for my first triathlon. So that's my story, and I want to share with you how you can make this connection with nature. So whatever your health is right now, or perhaps there are loved ones that you care about deeply who are struggling with their health or with health challenges or have chronic health issues, I hope that what I share with you today will provide some relief in terms of the suffering, and also provide like a path, a way to restore balance and harmony back in yourself, or to help your loved ones to restore balance and harmony back in themselves. So Chinese reflexology empowered me to heal myself. It wasn't about giving my health to this doctor or that doctor, or even the alternative healthcare practitioner saying, hey, you fix me. It was, hey, I'm going to take this power back for myself to heal myself. And because of that, because of how much Chinese reflexology has given me, like this ability to heal myself, to know what's going on in my body, to it, enabled me to reconnect with my body when I was so stressed out working in high tech. That's why I'm so passionate to empower you so that you can heal yourself too. So what I'm going to share with you today, like as I said, is our connection with nature is so important. There are these 5 elements that influence our organs, our body's energy meridians. So those are those pathways where qi, that life force energy, flows. And these 5 elements, these 5 natural elements are wood, fire, earth, metal, and water. And you may be wondering, okay, so how does this all influence my body? Well, let me tell you a bit more about these 5 elements. So in Chinese medicine, the 5 elements, it's actually called the 5 elements. This is a system or a framework, and you could even say it's like a philosophy in traditional Chinese medicine, for a way to describe the body, a way to analyze the body. Well, maybe analyze is too strong a word, but a way to understand what's going on in the body. So there are 5 elements. They're sometimes referred to as 5 phases, and these are the things that influence the qi, the life force energy in your body. It's this interaction of these 5 elements. So there are the different elements are associated with different organs and meridians in your body. And these elements must be in balance in your body in order for you to have optimal health and wellness. Whenever somebody has a disease, or they're, even their emotional well-being when they're not feeling balanced or they're under stress. These elements, these 5 elements are, working, you could say, behind the scenes, that this is all is there, what's going on in the body. So this little chart here gives you an idea of these interactions. So you can see across the top, there's the 5 elements: wood, fire, earth, metal, and water. And then down the side of the chart on the left, you can see different things associated with each of these elements. So there's an organ, there's a color, there's my Canadianness showing through, color spelt with a U. There are emotions associated with each element. There are seasons associated with the elements, and also taste. So this is where diet is influenced by these elements. So for example, let's take a look at wood. Wood is associated with the organ, the liver, and also the liver's energy meridians. So there's different pathways for each of these organs in your body, and there's like a energy pathway for the liver, and it is influenced and associated with this element of wood. Now, the color green is also associated with wood, which means it's associated with liver. And same with the emotion of anger. Anger is associated with liver. I'm going to explain how all of this is related in just a second. And there's a season also for wood, which is spring, and there's a taste, which is sour. So what this means is that for the liver, things that are beneficial for the liver in terms of food are things that have like a sour taste. Things that are green, so things like leafy greens, are good for the liver. And in terms of the emotion, anger. Anger is the emotion that, like, anger obviously affects our entire body, but it especially affects the liver because this is the emotion associated with the liver in terms of 5-element theory. And spring is important to note. I mean, it's spring now for a whole lot of you, except if you're living in the southern hemisphere. But if you're in the northern hemisphere, spring is basically the time for the liver. So this is the season where things are starting to sprout. Things are going from the bareness of winter into the green of spring. And it's a good time then for doing things that support the liver. So for example, people often want to do like a spring detox. That's why it's good to do it in the spring, because this is a time to support the liver, and helping to detox is good then for the liver because the liver does so much filtering of toxins for us. On the other hand, you wouldn't want to do like a detox in the winter, because if you look to the right-hand column, the black with the black color on top, the element of water, that's associated with the organ, the kidneys, and winter is the kidneys season. And for the kidneys in Chinese medicine, they're like our energy storage, like a cell phone battery storing our life force energy. So you don't want to be detoxing in winter, because winter is the time to support the kidneys, a time to, if you think about like more traditional times in the winter, people would stay home and, cozy up. That was the time where I don't know about you, but I know with me, I find like I want to eat warmer foods. I want to eat heartier foods. Sometimes you gain a little bit of weight in the winter. It's because you're sort of like stockpiling and storing energy in the winter. And then come spring, that's when everything is, sprouting again, when you want to start moving again. You want to do the detox then. And then heading into the summer, if you look at the second column, the red one, summer is the time of the heart and associated with fire. And that's, again, if you think about like the seasons, summer is the time where we want to be most active and out and about. So when we are going opposite to what our bodies and these elements are telling us, it's kind of like we're fighting within ourselves. So people who are like, pushing themselves hard to train in the wintertime or the fall, when really that's the time to sort of start, going inwards and storing and resting and nurturing your energy. And it's really the spring and summer that's the natural time to be out and about. Now, interestingly about these 5 elements is that they don't work in isolation with each other. And ditto with all the organs and meridians in the body, everything is interconnected. So in this little diagram here, you can see with these blue arrows, all of the relationships between the different elements. So you can see like the fire, the red circle is pointing to earth, which is the yellow circle, the spleen, and then the yellow is pointing to the white, the metal, and the lungs, and then from that it's pointing to the kidneys, the water, the black color, and the green circle, the wood and the liver. So those arrows pointing, kind of like forming a big circle, like each circle pointing to another circle on the perimeter there. That's basically illustrating how the elements, each of these elements generate each other, but they also keep each other in check. So that's where you see that what looks like a star in the middle. That's how one element helps to control another. And if you look at it in terms of just the physical elements themselves, like fire, the heat of fire can produce like the earth. And then the earth, then from the earth comes the metal. Now, this is one I always wondered, how does the metal produce the water? But I'm sure in Chinese medicine, there must be an explanation for that. But the one water, feeding the wood, feeding the plants, that, you know, that one's very clear. And then the wood also then is like the source of creating fire. So that's how you can see that the elements generate each other. And in terms of the body's organs and energy meridians, it works in a similar way where these elements can help, and these organs can help support each other. Now, in terms of keeping each other in check, so we're looking at those arrows in the middle, like the star there. So one element, you know, helps to keep the other one in balance. So let's look at the one, the green circle for wood and liver, and the yellow circle for spleen. So yeah, for example, it's said that the liver controls the spleen, but when there's an imbalance, the liver can over control the spleen. And in Chinese medicine, there's actually a phrase to describe that. It's like saying that the liver is attacking the spleen. So using that kind of theory, you understand that things that affect the liver can affect the spleen. So what the emotion associated with liver is anger. So if somebody is experiencing a lot of anger and stress, this then can cause the liver to over control, like to overact on the spleen. And in Chinese medicine, the way that that would manifest is that the spleen is supposed to help with digestion. It's like really important organ and meridian for digestion. So if somebody is experiencing a lot of anger and stress, that can affect their digestion and then, you know, cause like issues with digestion. And the spleen, the emotion associated with the spleen is worry. So if somebody is, you know, feeling a lot of anger and stress, it can then lead to them feeling a lot of worry too, because the spleen is being affected and pulled out of balance because of the liver. So in terms of healing, like if somebody just looked at, let me just do things for my liver, but they didn't look at doing things for their spleen, then they're not going to have that balance. You know, conversely, if they say, hey, I've got digestive issues going on, let me look at my stomach, let me look at the spleen, but they don't look at the liver, which is acting on the spleen, then they're going to, you know, not be able to restore balance. You have to address everything because of all of these interconnections here. So now I'm going to talk about what's referred to as 6 pernicious influences. And I even defined pernicious for you guys because I know when I first saw that, I was like, what does pernicious mean? So pernicious, according to Google, means having a harmful effect, especially in a gradual or subtle way. So these influences then, sometimes you can feel them right away, but oftentimes it's very, very subtle. So there are these weather-related influences that can, and I put this in quotes, invade, that's like the TCM lingo, Chinese medicine lingo, they say that these influences can invade the body and affect health and well-being. Basically, these weather exposure to these different types of weather or climate over time can affect the internal balance in the body if you're not, you know, countering the effects of these weather influences. So the 6 pernicious influences are heat, cold, wind, dampness, dryness, and summer heat. So summer heat is one of those, to me, when I first was learning Chinese medicine, I thought it was a bit weird, but it's referring to kind of like a damp sort of heat. You know how sometimes people get like a stomach flu near like in the summer? That's the kind of damp heat that is causing the imbalance. So you think of things like heat if you think of like the element or the influence, like when it's really, really, really hot outside, and then people are susceptible to sunstroke, or it can, affect your, how you're feeling, or same with cold too, like in the wintertime when it's really, really cold outside. Ditto for wind. We don't give enough credence, I don't think, in Western society to how wind can affect the body. For example, in Chinese medicine, there's this belief that wind can, quote unquote, invade the body, and then it can actually cause a person to catch a cold. Like they say, oh, somebody's got wind cold because they got the invasion of the wind and the cold from like a wintry weather, and that's what made them susceptible to catching a cold. So when it's like the time of the year, like right now, when the seasons are changing, you may notice that there's a lot of changes in the weather patterns. It's not consistent. One day it's hot, one day it's cold. And with each of these changes, when it's going from cold to hot or hot to cold, if you pay attention to the weather, you'll notice that it's going to be kind of windier in between those changes. And that's because the wind is causing, blowing out one weather pattern and bringing in another one. And it's at those times when people are most susceptible to catching cold. So what you want to do is you want to counter that. You want to make sure that you are, dressed warmly. You don't want to catch wind cold, that you're, if you're looking at how you can, just be extra kind and nurturing to yourself versus, pushing yourself harder and not getting enough sleep or trying to get that one last thing done. It's these times that we have to pay attention to. It's like they influence our body, and we got to go, hey, this is one of those times where I got to be more mindful of what's going on and look after myself better. Dampness. So if somebody is, one example, if you're, say, outside and you're sitting on like cold, damp, say, concrete bench for hours or something. Let's say you went swimming, you got your wet swimsuit on, then you're sitting on this cold, damp bench. Chinese medicine says that that's one way that can cause dampness to invade the body. And if the body is not able to resolve that dampness, the dampness can lead to things like urinary tract issues. It can cause like rashes. Dryness is another thing too that can influence the body. If it's really, really dry, like I was in Arizona last fall, and man, was it dry there. It was almost like the atmosphere was sucking the moisture from my skin. So it was so important to drink a lot of water. You've got to, be mindful of what's going on. I wouldn't drink that much water at home, but in Arizona, I was just glugging the water down. It was like not, it was like I didn't even hardly notice it, that I was drinking so much water. Well, I knew I was drinking that much water, but in terms of like the effects of it, it wasn't like if I had drank that much water back home in California. It was because the climate was so dry. It was necessary to counterbalance that. So these pernicious influences, as I was saying, they can cause disease. So they'll start out as an external influence, and then they're pernicious, so with a subtle effect over time. So if they're not checked, these influences are not held under being counterbalanced, and you're not doing things to account for them, then over time, something as simple as, say, like I gave the example of a cold, it can become what's referred to as internal. So it can start out as this external thing that causes something that's very superficial, like a cold, but if it's not addressed and it persists, then it can become something at a deeper level affecting the body and the more internal level. So the invasion of wind, cold, and dampness can make the body susceptible to catching cold, but if the cold progresses, it can become more internal, like a deeper condition like the flu or pneumonia. And again, it's not just the weather that causes the illness, because what is also factored in is what I showed you with those 5 elements and the organs and meridians, and we actually have 12 meridians, energy pathways in the body that all need to be in balance. So not everyone exposed to windy weather is going to catch a cold. Not everyone wearing a wet swimsuit sitting on a wet concrete bench is going to, get a rash or a urinary tract infection. some people are more susceptible to the weather because of the way of their body makeup. So we all have these elements within us, you know, the wood, the fire, the earth, let's see, wood, fire, earth, metal, and water. But some people will have, you know, a more influence from one element than the other. Like, for example, I'm more earth element. Earth people are more, you know, kind of grounded and tend to be more like the caring, helpful type. Whereas somebody who's like, say, let's say the wood element, they tend to be more, let's say, more authoritarian, let's say, more kind of the people who organize and plan things and see things more black and white. And everybody, like I said, you have all the elements with you in you, and some just may be a little more predominant than others. But it's not just like affecting the personality. It can also be things that you do in your lifestyle, things you do with your diet that will influence the balance of the elements within your body. So when something persists for a long time in imbalance, then it, not just through the weather, but lifestyle and diet and how, you know, thought patterns, you know, if you have repetitive thought patterns, that can create like areas in the body where there's energy constriction, like say somebody who, here's an example of somebody who has like a bad knee and they're always thinking, oh, my knee is so bad, this knee causes me problems all the time, then they may be kind of like, not only is there a problem with the knee initially, but just the thought process is affecting the flow of qi through that area of their body. Another actually good example would be the eyes. I often hear this all the time, people who wear glasses saying things like, I can't see anything, I'm blind as a bat. I mean, literally, that's not true, but they're repeating that message to themselves, and the body responds to that through the way the qi flows. And it's also pernicious. It's a very subtle thing that over time can then make that area of the body a little bit more prone to being affected by the flow of the qi and causing an imbalance over time. So it's so important then that we keep everything in balance and harmony as best as we can. Now, fortunately, actually, let me go through this slide too, like the ways to protect yourself from these pernicious, quote unquote, evils. That's what the Chinese medicine lingo. So you need, and then after this, I will share with you the one way that I find really, really powerful to restore balance, to help the body get back into balance. Like obviously you have to make those lifestyle and diet changes, but there's a way you can kind of like reset and recalibrate the body and make it easier to do these changes. So let's talk about these pernicious evils to protect yourself. So as I was saying, you need to dress appropriately for the weather, and you need to limit your exposure to this extreme weather. So obviously, you know, if you have to go outside on a windy day, do so, but make sure you're dressed warmly and you cover your head and especially the back of the neck, because in Chinese medicine, it's believed that the wind invades through the base of the back of the head there. You don't want to be exacerbating the influence of the weather. So if it is like a wet and cold, damp day, don't be eating wet, cold, damp food. So eat that warm food. You don't want to have like a big bowl of ice cream when it's really cold outside. So you've got to be aware of these seasons and how they affect your body. So you want to work with the seasons. As I was saying before, winter is the season for the kidney. So you want to be recharging and nurturing yourself and building up your energy stores, whereas spring is the time for the liver. That's a good time for detoxing. And actually the liver is associated with your eyes. So this is a good time to be spending time outside and looking off into the distance, really, really beneficial for the eyes, and the natural daylight is also really beneficial for the eyes. So it's a matter, of knowing what these influences are and not fighting against them, but understanding that they're there and working with them. So I'm going to share with you this really, really powerful way to recalibrate your energy. This is what I call nature's tuning fork. So everything is made out of energy. Oh, another typo here. You can tell I put this together very quickly because I really, really, really wanted to do an Earth Day celebration. Even though I just got back from a vacation in New Zealand, which, by the way, the nature there is amazing. It's such a beautiful country. So everything is made of energy, including your body. You have all these energy pathways. And so energy has this vibrational frequency. And what happens, though, is that stress and lifestyle can pull our bodies off balance. And then it starts to affect that natural vibrational frequency, that natural healthy vibration of the energy. Spending time in nature helps recalibrate the body's vibration to this natural frequency, because nature, unless there's like some sort of disease or something affecting the landscape, but if you're just, say, going camping and you're in a forest or you're out in nature, you're at a park, nature has its own natural frequency, which is the frequency that our bodies should be at as well. So when you spend time in nature, it's like nature is automatically helping you recalibrate. So there's been studies out recently how, I think they're calling it earthing or something like that, like just or grounding, where you stand on the earth at bare feet, and you're helping to kind of tune and align yourself with nature's energy. And even how, like, they have studies how when people spend time in nature, how they're calmer and they're feeling more peaceful. And they don't really say exactly why that is, but it's because of the energy of nature helping to balance the body. And one of the easiest, most powerful ways to do this recalibration, other than standing around in the dirt with bare feet, the one that I find really, really powerful is to hug a tree. Now, you don't literally have to hug the tree. What you do, and I'm going to explain this to you, is you touch the tree, you can touch it with your hand, and you feel the energy of the tree. This doesn't mean that you feel the energy through your hand. You try to feel the energy with the core of your beingness, so the core of your body. And if you're, get out of your head, don't think about it too much, and just put your hand on the tree and just set the intention you want to feel the tree's energy. And what you will notice, as you may notice right away, you may notice with some practice as you learn to, be still with the tree, is that you'll notice that your body has this sort of frequency about it, and the tree has its own, and the tree's energy is incredibly grounding, incredibly still. There's this, it's like this, I can't even describe it. It's like this eternal energy that is so connected. That's the best way I can describe it. You have to actually just feel it. And when you're connected with that energy, all of the thoughts and worries and stresses in your mind, they clear because the tree is clear and still and calm. So this is like the quickest way to recalibrate, because you compare your own energy to the tree's energy, and you allow the tree's energy to influence your own and to calm it down. So I remember when I first learned about spending time with trees was actually, I believe it was an interview that Oprah had with Eckhart Tolle, and he was recommending spending time with a tree. And the first time I tried it, I was like, oh my gosh, wow, there is something here. So if you're kind of finding it hard to connect with the tree, try to find the most majestic tree that you can. When you get a lot of practice with this, you can touch, a little twig, or you can touch a rock even and feel that connection. But when you're first starting out, it helps to find, like a really big oak tree or big willow tree or something that feels really impressive to your mind, because then your mind is more on board. It's like, okay, I can understand how I can calibrate with this tree, but maybe not a little twig, even though it's the same. But sometimes we have to do things to trick our mind. So you can recalibrate with the tree, and anytime that you're feeling like stressed, then you just remember the feeling of the tree and you're recalibrating your energy to that frequency. So when I first started doing this, it was when I was just leaving the high-tech world. So you can imagine my energy was, it was like really unstill. And I know because when I compared my energy to the tree, my energy was like, woo, all over the place. Whereas the tree was so still and calm. So do this for Earth Day. Not only hug a tree, but express appreciation for that tree. Express appreciation for the earth and the planet, which brings me to how can we help heal the planet? So we're at this point where things are changing on the planet. So we're connected to the planet, and our health is influenced by the planet's health. And our connection with our body actually reflects our connection to Earth. So when you're connected with your body, then you become more aware of this connection to the Earth and how it's like this symbiotic relationship. Whereas someone like myself, like must have been 15, 20 years ago when I was in high tech, I didn't have that connection. I lost that connection. I mean, we always have it, but we kind of ignore it and suppress it. And because of that, then, in that period of, stress and struggle, I was unable to look beyond my own pain to help the planet. But when we are reconnecting with ourselves and the earth and healing, then we are then able to then look outward again and look at how we can help, support and uplift the planet. So how we treat the earth is really a reflection of how we treat ourselves. Anybody who is, not feeling this connection with the planet, who is like just, taking resources, not thinking of how they impact the planet, it's not that they're a bad person. It is probably that there is some sort of internal struggle or disconnect or pain or suffering within the self. And it's because of that, it's like it kind of makes it hard for them to find that connection. So it's so important then that we nurture our own connection with the planet. And then by doing so, we can address some of these immediate concerns going on. So there was a United Nations report in 2018 where they basically said urgent and unprecedented changes are needed. That you're here celebrating Earth Day with me means you're probably aware of a lot of these things. So in that report, that they said that we needed to reach a target to keep global warming to a maximum of 1.5 degrees Celsius. 1.5 degrees Celsius. So even a 0.5 degree Celsius higher than that would significantly worsen the risk of drought, floods, extreme heat, and poverty for hundreds of millions of people. And one thing that stood out for me about that report was just that 0.5 degree Celsius more would wipe out, their predictions were that it would wipe out 99% of the world's coral. Whereas if we could keep things to 1.5 degrees Celsius global warming, then the coral has a chance for survival. And James Hansen, a former NASA scientist, the one who first drew attention to climate change, he said that 1.5 degrees Celsius gives young people and the next generation a fighting chance. So, and it's so important to look at what can we do to help reduce this global warming that the Earth is experiencing right now, because we can all make a difference. The United Nations report in 2018 said we have 12 years to cut carbon pollution by 45% by 2020. And that is to hit that goal of keeping the global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. Now, they said 45%. Now, imagine a world where we cut the pollution. Oh, wait, sorry, it should be 2030. My gosh, I'm full of so many typos here. I'm like, what? We got 2 years? No, we have 10 years. We have 10 years. Maybe that's why I made the typo, just to draw attention. We have 10 years to cut carbon pollution by 45%. But if we can cut it by more than that, if people are acting and it's happening at the community level, it's happening at corporation level, it's happening at local cities, it's happening in our own homes, we can keep that global warming to below 1.5 degrees Celsius. But we do have to act now because it takes time for all these changes in infrastructure to happen. So 87% of carbon emissions actually comes from burning fossil fuels. So this is coal to heat homes, natural gas for heating and cooking, as well as oil in terms of oil for fuel to power vehicles. So two-thirds of global carbon dioxide emissions come from two sectors: electricity and heat, so those things for our homes, and transportation, so cars and trucks. If we can reduce our consumption of fossil fuels, then we can reduce carbon pollution. And the way to do that is to be shifting, one of the quickest ways to do this is to be shifting to sustainable and renewable energy sources like hydroelectricity, wind, solar, even ocean waves are being used to generate electricity. So I know it can seem like, well, hey, these are big structural things happening and I can't control that, but we can to a certain level. So we want to look at it like we want to heal the planet, and it can seem daunting, like how do I start and do that? But we go from this to this to this. So we're always going in closer to this. And then where it's at the individual level and individuals working together. So, we can step up naturally. Now I'm going to walk you through this slide. So obviously there's those easy, low-hanging fruit things like minimizing consumption, like switching to LED light bulbs. I think a regular light bulb can use 60 watts, where the same amount of light output, an LED light bulb will use 8 watts of energy. We can be planting trees. So a lot is spent time as communication is talking about reducing consumption, but we can also plant trees that help to suck up the carbon. And electrifying transportation is really important because, yes, there are studies that are saying, well, what if it's only good if somebody is getting their electricity from a sustainable energy source. But there are studies that are actually showing that even if the car is getting electricity from more traditional sources of electricity production, it is still better in terms of carbon emissions than a regular gas car. So I know if you've got a vehicle right now, we still have one in our house, like an internal combustion engine, and I just bought a used electric vehicle. They're actually priced really well. So if it's something you're thinking of, you might want to look into a used one. I bought one last summer, and it's just so nice to be able to drive around and know that there's no emissions coming out of that car. Plus, it's like I enjoy driving it much better than the regular car, and I don't even like driving. And here in California, you may want to look into your local utility. Just contact them. That's the one thing you can do. Contact them and say, sustainable, renewable energy is important to me. What are you doing? Where are you getting your energy sources from? That's how you affect like the bigger picture thing, is that a lot of utilities are looking at switching to renewable sources. And if their customers are telling them that they want it, that will help move the process along, because they're finding it's actually more cost effective for them to use renewable energy sources and energy storage options than it is to, fire up a gas power plant to handle, peaks in power consumption. Like, for example, if everybody has, their air conditioner on, then they have to, fire up a gas plant in order to handle the additional energy that's required. So utilities are looking for these solutions. And if their customers are saying, we want it, then it's definitely going to, hasten the transition. I think I was just reading recently, like in Wisconsin, I forget the name of it, but their largest utility provider is actually making a commitment to, I think they were going to be 100% sustainable by 2045 or something like that. I forget the exact numbers, but it's showing that it's happening everywhere, and it's up to us to just let our voices be heard. You can also volunteer for your local environmental groups. I just gave a couple examples of groups that work at the local level. So 350.org, international organization that has a lot of local chapters. Sierra Club does a lot of work as well. And I've highlighted in green, what's your wheelhouse? Because each of us, like addressing global climate change, it's a huge undertaking, but each of us has our own specialty. It's like we're each a thread in this tapestry weaving a solution. So Maybe you're really into gardening or camping, or you're a talented speaker, or you're a healer, or you're a talented storyteller, or you're a talented artist, or you work with children, or you're an inventor. There's something that you're really good at that you can take that and apply it in a way to support the planet and be like your own little golden thread weaving into the tapestry so that we can all collectively create the solution. Because there's many, many, many different ways to approach this, many, many different skills needed, many different angles of approach needed in order to meet those targets that the United Nations gave in their 2018 report. And I want to especially speak to those of you who are watching this, because a lot of the people who are drawn to my Reflexology website, a lot of you have a very strong earth element within you. So you feel the planet. You have this connection with, like, you, let's say if you're a gardener, you have this connection with the plants that you're tending to. You have this sense of when do they need water, or when are they being overwatered, or they need more sun. And it's not something that you do by, looking at the plant and making all this analysis. It's just something that you know. So you have this natural earth connection, and you are especially feeling for the planet and wanting to make a difference, because some people don't have that natural connection that you do. And the thing, though, with us earth people is that earth people like to, be at home. They want to, cozy up. They're very content being grounded and in their, having their own little nest kind of thing. But it's time now that we earth people need to reach out into our communities, to step up into our brilliance and our light, and claim that and share our gifts with the people who don't have that natural connection, to share through our talents and our brilliance, because planet Earth needs us today. So do your thing and do it today. And there's a quote by the Chinese philosopher Lao Tzu, where a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. So just one small step will take you on this path to making a difference. And you start at that individual level. You start with that one step. Then we start to connect with the community. Then we start to affect, an area greater than ourselves. And it spreads out to, this area where we live, this country or continent that we live, and then to planet Earth. So I just want to say thank you so much for joining me today for Earth Day. I hope that I have inspired you to start thinking of how there's something that you do that could make a difference. Like if you're into gardening, share your passion for gardening with others. When people are connected with the earth, then it helps them heal too, and it helps them realize like this full cycle of, planting and tending and nurturing and reaping and harvesting, and just bringing back that earth connection. There's something that everyone watching this presentation today, there's something that you do, there's some way that you can share. Don't belittle what it is that you can contribute. Like our minds will be, out of just out of wanting to keep things the same, and self-doubt and judgment might go, no, that's not going to make a difference. But it can, and it will make a difference. So I implore you to step up naturally and make a contribution to the planet in whatever way that you can, to just find that within yourself. And also to, before I end our presentation today, let me just stop these slides. I'm going to put back the video. Hi, so I'd like to ask that we take a moment right now just to have like a moment of love and appreciation for planet Earth. Like, we think of ourselves as these sentient conscious beings, and we don't often attribute this to things like plants or rocks or planet Earth. And true that consciousness is not the same as the way we think, but there is like a consciousness and a feeling in the fabric of everything in the planet and the world and the earth. And as you know, as an earth person, you know what I'm talking about. So let's take a moment. Let's just close your eyes. Take a breath. Appreciate the air that we breathe. Feeling that recalibration, maybe picture a time where you're in the forest outside, feeling that energy that you felt in nature, allowing your breath to ease and flow, relax, and then returning that energy that we receive from nature and sending back love and appreciation to planet Earth right now. And just feeling love for the beauty that planet Earth shares with us. The majestic skies, that bright blue sky, the puffy white clouds, the majestic mountains that we've seen, the beauty and wildness of the ocean, the earth's animals and creatures, and even the bugs and the worms, the butterflies and the birds and the mammals and the fish. Just love for the entire planet. Okay. Thank you so much for joining me today.